This is The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
They're running a strange program, y'all.
Now, here's Frank Morano.
Here we are, Independence Day in America. No other country I'd rather be in. And that is the God's honest truth. I look at what is going on all over the world, and it makes me appreciate how lucky I am to be in these United States. If you look at what's happening in Nigeria, death toll from a series of suicide bombings rising. If you look at what's going on with Israel and Gaza, situation speaks for itself. If you look at what's going on in Afghanistan, any which way you look, you see we're pretty lucky to be in the United States. But one of the things that we were always, I don't know if taught is the right word. One of the things that was always repeated, especially when we're children, even in schools, I don't know if they still do this in school, is that America is the greatest country in the world. It's drilled into us from such a young age that you almost don't even question it. Well, what else could be better than America, or the United States of America to be specific? Canada, Mexico, France? The UK, by the way, the UK is having their elections today. Not looking good for the Conservatives over there, the Tories, the Conservative Party. And it's looking very good for Labour. It's also looking pretty good for Nigel Farage's Reform UK party. And Farage, well, whatever. We'll have a discussion about the British elections on Monday because I am interested in that. But we'll put that aside. There was a show about, what years? About 12, 13 years ago, called The Newsroom. Really interesting show, especially if you are interested in the news media, and especially if you like Jeff Daniels. It was an Aaron Sorkin show, and I thought it was great. I think it only lasted maybe 2 or 3 seasons. It didn't have the staying power of some of his other shows like The West Wing, but it was a great show. Really interesting, especially if you were into the news or politics, of which I was. And I don't know that it would hold up as well today, because really in the post-Trump era, everything that was standard about the news business has kind of been turned on its head. Now there is no standard. There's nothing that you could show on cable news other than maybe somebody deviating from the official party line of the globalist agenda of folks that run the world, like Tucker Carlson used to, that would really surprise you, right? I mean, there's nothing you could put on cable news that people would say, oh my goodness, I can't believe blank. But anyway, at the time that this show came out, it was a little bit of a different era in cable news. And in the first episode, Jeff Daniels is a news anchor. Or he's a news anchor that's pretty straight-laced. I don't think he was giving his opinion at the time. And he got very good ratings. And he's appearing on I don't know if they're at a college. It's been a while since I saw this. But they're at a college something. And he's up there with a conservative pundit and a liberal pundit. And there's another moderator moderating the discussion. I don't know if it was a media personality or the dean of the communication school or something along those lines. So it would be like if I'm interviewing who's a Kristen Welker, and who's a big liberal pundit? James Carville, and a conservative pundit, Mary Madeline, right? I mean, I don't know if Mary Madeline is still relevant as a conservative pundit, but whoever the conservative pundit du jour is. And there's a question from the crowd, which I think is particularly relevant to exploring today on Independence Day. I'm going to play you the question and a little bit of what the conservative says and a little bit of what the liberal says. This is from the Aaron Sorkin show. It's courtesy of HBO's The Newsroom.
Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
Diversity and opportunity.
Lewis?
Freedom and freedom. So let's keep it that way.
Will?
The New York Jets.
No, I'm going to hold you to an answer on that. What makes America the greatest country in the world?
And ultimately, what transpires next does become a pretty key plot point, not only in that episode, but in the story arc of that whole first season. But what I thought might be interesting on Independence Day, it might be interesting to actually answer that question, the very question that that student posed.
What makes America the greatest country in the world?
And I would love to hear your answer. And the answer can be, it's not, right? That's what one of the characters in that show ultimately says. It's not the greatest country in the world. I'll give you my take. But first, I don't want to color your perspective by giving you mine before folks weigh in. So I will ask you the question, and I would like you to weigh in at 646-720-0635, 646-720-0635. What makes America the greatest country in the world?
A question. Since before your sun burned hot in space, and before your race was born, I have awaited a question.
And if you call in at 646-720-0635 and answer the question that it's not, then explain to me why. Why is it not? Is it not because people end up in bankruptcy and poverty because of medical debt? Is that why? Is it not because we have all this gun violence? Is it not because of because we're bombing all of these other places? Explain to me why. You can use those answers, but I'm just putting those out there as examples. 646-720-0635. Coming up in about 15 minutes. We normally do the Gnome's News that you can use segment, but Gnome Laden is not here today. Instead, sitting in for Gnome and filling in on all his duties today is the one and only Liz Rattoballi. Now, I am a big fan of Liz's work. She's a terrific news anchor. And she has a very great way of being informational and sounding conversational at the same time. She doesn't sound like she's talking over your head. She doesn't sound like she is, sounds like she's somebody trying to give you information. So we're going to invite her to sit in for Gnome today. And I'm not going to bring this up while she's on the air with me because, I don't want to embarrass her or anything. But this is the first time that I've ever said anything like this on radio with a coworker, but I have known Liz since she was 5 years old. 5 years old. And it really is a mind twist to have somebody that you remember running around the radio station at 5 years old now being basically an equal, a coworker and a colleague, and really a distinguished news professional. And, I don't feel old. I've never really felt old. I still feel like a child myself, honestly. But I think if I was ever to feel old, that's right up there in terms of the reasons why. But I want to hear your answer, too.
What makes America the greatest country in the world?
646-720-0635. Joaquin in Pennsylvania, happy Independence Day. You have an answer for me, Joaquin?
Yes, I do. I think it's going down the toilet, but real quick, had a female German Shepherd that loved fireworks.
All right, Joaquin. So it's going down the toilet. So it's not the greatest country in the world, then.
Well, hang on. I'll tell you why. MAGA is like the new third party, and unfortunately, right now we're going down a track where everything is going into the leftist Marxist agenda.
All right. Well, it sounds like a pretty great country so far, the way you describe it.
Yeah, it has been, and hopefully we can bring it back again. But you take a look at everything that they've been doing to Donald Trump and to anyone who is on the side of, make America great again, putting political prisoners into jail. And even January 6th has been totally misrepresented, and the truth has never really come out about it. And my family history goes back to Nazi Germany. And again, my grandfather was executed for helping undesirable people.
So just to be clear, Joaquin, to put a button on this, that America is not the greatest country in the world because of everything that you said, the persecution of Donald Trump, the persecution of the January 6th people, and the Marxists and the leftists. That's why America is so crummy.
It's not crummy. It's on the verge of becoming totally crummy. But yeah. I mean, what's going on right now is just,
all right. I appreciate your answer, Joaquin. Thank you. I give him credit for answering honestly. What do you think? Is America the greatest country in the world? 646-720-0635 this Independence Day. And if the answer to that question is yes, then why? 646-720-0635. Robert is on Long Island. What do you think, Robert?
I think America is the greatest country in the world. And before someone can really answer that question, you have to travel. And I've been to, since the 60s, I've been to Caribbean, to Europe, to Asia, to the Middle East. And even my woke millennial daughter who lived overseas, she was so happy to come back. She lived on the southern coast, the northern coast of Spain for about a year. And when you appreciate, and then also 17 million immigrants or illegal aliens, whatever you want to refer to them as, and more are fighting to get into this country that defies that something is good, regardless of all our negatives and positives and devices and crime and whatever. People are fighting to come to this country. Mm-hmm. So the resounding answer, regardless of how you feel, will always be yes. And I was traveling about 10 years ago in Sharjah, which is outside of Dubai in UAE. And there was a man sweeping the road in the middle of the desert. And when I got off the bus and I talked to him, and, as long as I don't open my mouth, they think I'm African. But once they hear the accent, they go, oh, you're from New York, you're from the USA. And he said he would do anything to bring his family to the United States. And I said, why? I mean, you're in a rich Arab country. He says, there's nothing like the freedoms and the liberties and the things you take for granted. Here, we take for granted that no other country has. Well said, Robert. I love that. That's I think, a great answer. Thank you, Robert. 646-720-0635. Tim is in St. Louis listening on KMOX. Tim, what do you think?
Oh, hey, Frank. I started thinking what makes America great, and I kept I couldn't come up with an answer, so I finally thought that what makes it great is its potential for catastrophic failure. Is that a crazy idea or what?
Take me through that. I don't know that I'm following you.
I don't know if I'm following it either, but it just seems like it's an experiment that's always striving and inventing itself.
All right. Okay. I think maybe I'm getting an inkling of what you mean. I think that kind of goes to part of my conversation with Lindsay Chervinsky yesterday on where America was in 1796 when John Adams became president. A lot of folks weren't even sure the country was going to survive, and yet here we are. Thank you, Tim. Let me say hello to Nick, listening on WCCO in Minneapolis. Hey there, Nick.
Hello, Frank. So I think the reason America's the greatest country in the world compared to some third world countries or something like that is there are people that are fair and nice to each other, and especially as a blind person, I feel as though people, how do I say this? People sort of give me the benefit of the doubt on certain things, like, for example, Frank, if I ever came to New York or if you ever came to Minnesota, you would see people describing certain things to me, like where things are at the grocery store or what things look like. I mean, I don't know if you can understand that, but would you think that was weird if I met you, let's just say you came to Minnesota and I met you and the person that was helping me said, now Frank's wearing
I think that's very nice. Nick, I'm just going to put you on hold and ultimately end our discussion because it's driving me crazy to hear the show back. And if it's driving me crazy, I can't imagine what the listeners are going through. I appreciate that. But I'm not just talking about comparing America to the third world or to countries that are impoverished. I am saying greatest. I got I think it was a banner or something that Carmine made around Father's Day, and it says the world's greatest dad. And when he presented it to me, I said, I don't know that I can accept this. I don't know that I can live up to that title of world's greatest dad. I feel, really unprepared to accept this honor. So when we say greatest, we're saying greatest. And if America is the greatest, why is it the greatest? I enjoyed some of the answers that the previous caller gave in terms of, and this is sort of part of what I was thinking, what other country are people literally dying to get into? There's a lot to be, I want to hear more from you. 646-720-0635. Lisa is in Connecticut. Hi, Lisa.
Hi. I traveled, I'm a very well-traveled person, and, I was away for touring for a long time, and when I came back, it was like, oh, thank God I'm back. I went to a lot of different places, and a lot of really cool places, but there's no place like home. There's no place like America. I'm really, really thankful for everything. Our democracy, everything, freedom of speech. We get to do whatever we want, and I don't know. I just think it's a really great country.
It certainly, it certainly is, Lisa. Thank you. Appreciate that. The feeling. Well, first of all, we don't get to do whatever we want, but the feeling that Lisa described about coming home after you've been abroad and feeling a sense of relief, I feel that same way, and I'm not sure if that's uniquely American. Or if I was French or British or Canadian, I would feel that way when I got to any of those countries as well, when you've been abroad. I think maybe there's a little bit of both to that. Danielle in Brooklyn. What do you think, Danielle?
Hi, Frank. Long time no speak.
Yeah, we missed you.
America is, okay, this is like a two-part answer. Mm-hmm. America is the greatest country because it is the most beautiful country. Even though we're a young country, we have the most beautiful landscape. Like we have mountains, we have deserts, we have, the only thing I don't think we have is a rainforest. But it's gorgeous if you ever drove cross country. Now, the thing is, it also is a great country because it's the one country that you can have so many rights while being in jail. Like, I feel like everywhere else in the world, like if you go to jail anywhere else in the world, like you're screwed. Like you're not there is no you don't have no rights. You don't get fed 3 square meals a day, and it can be pretty bad. You ever see the movie Midnight Express?
I have, and that is right on the money. But you can look at prisons in a lot of different places around the world, and you're right; they're not exactly being well taken care of. If this was Russia or China, you'd be having a tough time.
So just by what we do with the prisons, that's like how well we do, like how well we treat people that are in prison. They treat the law-abiding citizens just as even better. So you can make the comparison, like how good we treat prisoners. The people here get treated even better that don't break.
I like it, Danielle. Danielle, thank you. Well done. Happy Independence Day. Joe, what do you think? Is America the greatest country?
I think it's a beautiful landscape and topography. However, the final nail in the coffin that ended America was the COVID lockdowns. This is not a free country. Masking students, giving them an injection, mandating an injection with no informed consent. That was the end of America. And also, it doesn't have a free press, Frank. There's an alternative press, but it's not a free press. Look at Tucker Carlson. He can never say what he's saying now when he had that Fox job,
But why? I mean, look, the fact that he's still broadcasting on new media or on the internet,
right?
It's not as if he's being silenced. We all can listen to him if we want.
Right. But to say that the press is ideal, that the accounting's right, we used to have even in business, everybody should follow our accounting, global accounting, international accounting, and look at all the scandals we've had with accounting. Major corporations paying zero tax. So I think we're as a country, the most hypocritical.
All right. Well, I get it, Joe. Thank you. 646-720-0635. Eric is calling from Finland. Hello, Eric.
Hey, what's up, Frankie? Listen, you were saying that people are dying to get in there. I know. I'm living in Europe, and people are dying to get in here every day. The same kind of freedoms, maybe
that, Eric. But
I said shifty.
Gotcha. Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate that, Eric. So give me your answer to the question. Do you, especially someone that's living abroad, do you think America is the greatest country in the world, and why or why not?
Yeah, I think it's the greatest country in the world because it accepts everybody. But there are other places that have similar freedoms, and it's pretty damn good. I grew up in New York City and Queens, and I moved back to Europe at a certain point. It's pretty good here. I like coming back, and I'll just say America is the greatest. Happy birthday.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. 646-720-0635. Sean in Virginia, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's the greatest country for a lot of reasons, and I'm so glad that the owner and the owner's son of your radio station picked such a good team of talk show hosts that tell the truth and sound like America in the old days in World War II that rallied together and fought. My father was in World War II, and it shortened his life. But I can tell you, you are still my favorite talk show host in that place. And I'm not saying that to kiss up to you. When Pat Robertson died down here,
I had nothing to do with that.
People liked him. I mean, he died. Mm-hmm. And you said something nice about him on the radio show that really got my attention about his name, and everything. And people criticized him. But he was a guy that was kind to everybody, and people liked him. And they had a lot of great people in this country, and they're going to come back and be great again.
Well,
but I think the show that y'all have is a great thing for America.
Well, Sean, so far I agree with you 100%. Thank you. Alex is in Hampton Bays, listening on WLIR. Hey there, Alex.
How's it going, Frank?
It's going.
One of the reasons I think America's great, and don't laugh at me, is Naked Cowboy. There is literally a guy who woke up one day, picked up his guitar, and he's like, I'm going to be naked cowboy. And he's doing okay for himself.
Oh,
I mean,
better than okay. He's wealthy.
What a country we live in.
See, I love that. What a great answer. I love that, and I think you really put your finger on the incredible opportunity that there is in a country like the United States that's lacking in, say, a country like India, for instance. Thank you, Alex. Nothing against India. Chris in the Catskills, what do you think?
Good morning, Frank. It's a nuance-based answer, but I agree with elements of what three of your previous callers said. Had a conversation with the Naked Cowboy 12 years ago in Manhattan. He's an avid listener of talk radio.
I know. He's probably listening right now. Yeah.
His favorite host was Michael Savage, but I agree with the caller that said our vast, beautiful expansiveness is unparalleled. That's the greatest. Obviously, we have the greatest talk radio hosts like yourself and Curtis in the world, the greatest talk radio, the greatest entertainment, greatest professional sports. However, we don't have the best healthcare system. We don't have the best infrastructure. We don't have the best educational system, although we have the highest concentration of colleges and universities that everybody's coming for. Our jurisprudence, criminal justice system, American law school professors will tell you we have the greatest legal system. I think that's very debatable. Do we have the most efficient and effective government? I think that's debatable.
I don't think it's debatable. I think the answer is a resounding no, in my opinion. Chris, thank you. I want to get in at least one more person here because she's been holding a while. Viviana in Brooklyn, give me your answer.
Wow, a lot of things I agree with. I believe that America is the greatest experiment that God ever initiated. When I think of the Pilgrims and even Christopher Columbus wanting to come to America, especially when they thought that they might be off the map.
Should I tell her that Columbus didn't know he came to America?
They just kept on coming. And that freedom of religion, where we are saying we're one nation under God. You think about the 10 Commandments, that was the basis of our judicial prudence. And although that we've lost a lot of that, I believe there's hope we can return. You can become whoever you want to be, potentially. You have the Bill of Rights, where you have your freedom of speech. You have the right to defend yourself. There's checks and balances in the government because of our Constitution. Ingenuity, innovation. We're the most generous nation in the world. We give more to people in disaster in the world than anyone else. And then there's the potential, like they mentioned, for upward mobility. Yeah. And that we change our government usually by vote.
Viviana, thank you. Thank you. I don't mean to cut you off there. I think that was a great point in terms of worldwide generosity. And that was something that nobody else had mentioned. The thing that I'll mention, I agree with much of what everybody said. First of all, I think America's government is awful. I think there is so much to be changed. And when I say it's awful, I don't just mean we make poor decisions. I mean the structure of the government is a mess. It's not conducive to democracy or democratic values or anything like that. I think there's a lot of problems with it. I think it's debatable whether America is even still really a democracy, to be honest. I think, in my view, what makes America the greatest country in the world, aside from the fact that you have people literally dying to come here, is America's place as a symbol, as a worldwide international symbol for freedom, for liberty, for a haven to escape persecution. I don't know that in the history of the world, honestly, from the Roman Empire to the present day, there's ever been a country that is so known as a symbol of all that's right. And I think part of America's struggle is that we always strive to live up to that image and try to make that symbol a reality. But I think that symbol is just such a wonderful aspiration for all of us that live here and for all of us, all the people around the world that want to live here. About 20 years ago, and this is the last thing I'll say, during the Iraq War, I met maybe about 19 years ago, I met a person that had been held captive in Iraq. And I wish I could remember the person because he was an interesting guy, and I'll find him because I want to invite him back on the air. And he described how he was held captive by Iraqi, militants, basically Islamic jihadist insurgents. And they would threaten to kill him. Pretty serious stuff. And when his other fellow guard was not in the room, that guard was asking the person that he was holding prisoner how he could get to the United States and get a green card and live there and start a new life. It wasn't to come to America and be a terrorist. He wanted to come here and be an American. Think about that. People that were so into being jihadists in the Middle East, they were aspiring to come here and be America, which I think is really interesting. So that's where I think America stands out far and above everywhere else. Sure, America has a great economy. A lot of countries do. America has had a great cultural influence. A lot of countries have. America has a lot of great educational institutions. That's certainly true. We have a lot of great natural beauty. And by the way, I think do have a rainforest as part of a national park in Oregon. But I think there's no country that comes even close to America as a symbol for all that's good in terms of freedom and liberty. All right, Liz Rattoballi will make her debut on our show straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano. It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
It was 1989, my thoughts were short, my hair was long. Caught somewhere between a boy and man. She was 17 and she was far from in between. It was summertime in northern Michigan.
Minutes till the top of the hour. This is Kid Rock singing about summer and America and all sorts of interesting things. Really interesting that he makes the point of his hair being long, because the news anchor sitting in Noam Laden's chair today has hair that is substantially longer than his, and apparently she has much more of a knowledge of popular music than Noam typically does. But I am very, very pleased to welcome, sitting in for...
Stand by for the other side of Midnight's news.
From New York City, The Other Side of Midnight and its affiliated stations present national and international news with Frank Morano and news director Noam Laden. Their summary of the world news and personal comments. Get the rest of the story.
Sitting in for Noam Laden is Liz Rattoballi. Liz Rattoballi, welcome. I'm sorry we don't have a custom announcer open for you.
Yeah, we need to get on that.
Agreed. I don't know what Elias does all day. The guy's been building a ship in a bottle for the last 4 hours.
Twiddling his thumbs over there. Come on.
Exactly. He and Tony, they're playing cards like Ricky Henderson and Bobby Bonilla. Liz, it's great to have you. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thank you.
I have been enjoying listening to you. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and it's great to have you. You make our show better by being a part of it, so we're excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. I'm real excited to be here.
How are you managing the hours?
It's an adjustment. It's definitely an adjustment, but I've gotten used to it. I've always been a night owl, so it's honestly like a complete 180 for me. But I've gotten used to my body clock gets me up at 2 a.m. Sometimes recently I actually woke up on my day off at 5 a.m. in a panic. I was like, I'm like,
that happens all the time. I have nightmares, literally, still about oversleeping. All right, it happens constantly. All right, well, since you are a night owl, there's some howling that you have to do because you got big shoes to fill. Well, actually, Noam is kind of short anyway. Give us some stories. Give us the news. Tell us what's happening.
All right. So, have you ever been to Chipotle? Are you a big fan of
My
Chipotle?
wife likes Chipotle, and I have been in there with her. Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've ever noticed, sometimes when you go there and order things, it'll be different sizes. You'll order the same thing. You could have a go-to consistent order, and it'll be different portion sizes. So a Wells Fargo analyst actually studied 75 burrito bowls from Chipotle and found that there were some issues with the portion size. There were some discrepancies. There was actually a 47% difference between the heaviest and the lightest bowl.
Why do they do that? That seems terrible.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that there would be some sort of consistency, especially when you're ordering something so consistently. They said that they, chose something. They went with a specific order that was the same. They wanted to, remove any variables in their little experiment here. But, the store, they kind of explain it away like, it's whoever's working. If they have a heavy hand, they're scooping your stuff.
I guess I kind of get that. So unlike what we hear about with shrinkflation and stuff like that, this isn't necessarily something that's being done by Chipotle to rip people off in terms of the sizing, right?
No, absolutely not. The CEO, Stephen Els, actually said that they actually are usually a bit generous sometimes with their portions. Oh. Yeah, I mean, and he said that he's never seen anyone leave Chipotle hungry, which, I agree with. I've never left there hungry. I'm a big fan.
Well, what's interesting is when you picture a chain restaurant, especially, is Chipotle considered fast food? I guess it would be, right?
Definitely.
So when you picture a chain restaurant, especially fast food, you think of wherever you're going, whether it's California, New York, St. Louis, Minnesota, you would think of whatever you order is going to be basically the same. But I guess at least at Chipotle, it's not. You could order the same thing in two different stores, maybe even the same store, and get at least different size.
Yeah, and there was one store specifically here in New York City that they said was the worst. They didn't name which one, so, there's no way of really avoiding that store, but that was the worst. So that, there is some discrepancy. There is still a lot of people, though, that go into Chipotle. They say that foot traffic has increased. The Wells Fargo analyst found that, they perform very well financially.
I'm sure they did. Now, was hearing this news at all a disappointment for you, or it doesn't affect your enjoyment of Chipotle at all?
Honestly, it does not affect my enjoyment. I still go in, I order what I want to order. I never really do the digital orders. The digital orders is actually where they found the biggest discrepancy. They found an 87. Now,
what's a digital order? They don't give you digital food.
No, it's like when you Uber Eats or like Grubhub, DoorDash, or even, sometimes now they have their own websites where they or like their own banks too. Starbucks does that where you could upload money into your specific account.
Yes, yeah, I've
and they
heard
hold
of that.
on to your money. So now Wells Fargo, they're competing with Chipotle on a certain.
I see. I got you. Okay, well that is interesting. That's good to know. What else we have?
So I don't know if you've ever had a robot servant.
I have not. I mean, we do have an Alexa device, but it just sits there. It doesn't.
No Roombas?
Oh, actually, we did have a Roomba. I think he broke, but I really liked it. It was very, if people don't know, it's a robotic vacuum cleaner, and it was not as good as having a human vacuum cleaner, but it worked in a pinch.
Yeah, well, robots have been taking over to do these sort of menial tasks. And in South Korea, there was actually a robot that worked in the mayor's office. And unfortunately, that robot ended up committing suicide.
You're kidding?
Yes.
Why did the robot kill himself or itself?
There really is no answer. Witnesses saw the robot sort of glitching out, circling, going in circles before it ended up jumping down a staircase.
Whoa. Did it leave a note?
I would really like to know if there was any coding, ones and zeros left in their final memo.
Well, how do we know it killed itself and it wasn't just an accident?
There really is no way of knowing. That's what people are kind of projecting onto this robot. They see it's been in a year of servitude and they say, oh, it killed itself.
I see. Well, it's also not inconceivable that the humans that are working in the mayor's office are seeing the risk of their jobs being replaced by robots, and they're trying to take issue with these robots and kill some of these robots or kill this particular robot.
That's honestly a valid point because South Korea is one of the most robotic countries in the world. There is one robot for every 10 workers.
I don't think it's a true story, but in the film Star Trek 6, are you a Star Trek fan?
I have not seen that one. I've seen a few.
Okay, that's a good one. But anyway, we learn the story, and again, I don't think it's true, but we learn the story that there was this footwear that was made of wood worn on Earth during the 19th century. It's called sabot, and when workers they saw that their livelihood was threatened by new technology, new machines that were just recently invented. They threw their shoes into the machinery to screw them up. And that's where supposedly the term sabotage comes from.
Oh.
But again, I don't think it's a true story, but
the story of the Luddites too.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe this was the South Korean version of the human strike back, so to speak.
I mean, yeah, and that's a fair point. The robots definitely, do they have an answer to this? Are the robots going to have some sort of response? I would like to see that.
I'm glad I'm not there too close to that. My goodness. All right, you have one more for us?
Yes, I do have one more for you. When's the last time you've been to an animal farm or the zoo?
It was maybe about 5 or 6 months ago. I was at an event at the Bronx Zoo. It was in the fall. It was around October, November. That's
Bronx
right.
Zoo is beautiful.
It really
huge.
is good. Yeah, really impressive.
Right in the botanical gardens.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. But so there is a unique animal farm that's open in Florida, and it actually is beneath a jail.
Oh, you're kidding.
I am not. There is beneath a Monroe County Sheriff's Office opened up a farm below the detention center.
Wow. Why did they do that?
Back in 1994, they noticed that there were a bunch of ducks getting hit by cars in the space between a golf course and the detention center. So they just bought that space between and started taking in sanctuary animals.
Well, I think that's great because if you're a child of someone that's incarcerated, it's got to be a pretty stressful thing. It's great to see your loved one, but it's tough saying goodbye to them and seeing them behind bars. To be able to go right downstairs and spend some time with some ducks or something, I think that's a nice thing. Maybe it does something to help these children that are seeing their incarcerated relatives emotionally a little bit.
Yeah, no, wholesome family content. And actually, the incarcerated people at that detention center do get to work at the farm. They actually volunteer at the farm, or, it's not clear if they ended up getting a stipend from that work that they do there, but they actually get a day off. They don't take it. Most of them don't take it because they like being around the animals.
Well, that's very nice. I love hearing that, and a positive story to end our Independence Day interaction together. Liz, thank you. Please keep an eye on James Flippin tomorrow. Don't let him screw up our show. Also, and I mean this pretty sincerely, don't let him do too good of a job, because I don't want to come in here on Monday and they say, you don't actually have to come in. James is going to stay in your chair and Liz is going to stay doing the things that James does. So if you see that James is really catching a head of steam and in danger of replacing me, do like they did to that South Korean robot.
Yeah, knock him down a few pegs.
Exactly. Grab that wooden shoe and throw it to the microphone or something.
Will do.
All right. Thank you, Liz. Great job.
Thank you.
And now you know the rest of the story.
The great Liz Rattoballi, always a treat, and you can hear her on WABC in New York all morning long, where she does an absolutely marvelous job sitting in for Noam Laden. All right, we're going to do 15 seconds of fame coming up in about 3 minutes. If you want to start queuing up, you can. 646-720-0635, 646-720-0635. I tried to get my hard drive back from Best Buy yesterday. I was unsuccessful because apparently the manager, who is the only person authorized to give me back my broken hard drive, was not in. So the saga continues. No response to my email to this manager asking for my own broken hard drive back. But I figured, let me go in there. I'm told he works 9 to 5. So I went in there yesterday with Carmine, picked Carmine up from summer camp. We go in there. And I didn't have an appointment, so you have to wait in the queue if you don't have an appointment. But I figured I'd just be able to ask for Nelson. His name's Mike Nelson, but everybody calls him Nelson. And lo and behold, he was not in. But Carmine had such a great time. He was running around this store in circles. He was loving touching everything. I'm trying to stop him from touching everything, but he's so quick. And I'm chasing him. Then there's a back area with all sorts of big television sets with all sorts of colorful things on the television sets. And he's staring at them. And I'm trying to hold him. And he's just saying, no, I don't do that. I just want to, be on my own. I want to walk. And so finally, I am able to bring him to the front of the store to try to wait in line again. And there's people ahead of me in the line. And there's one gentleman, he's a little older, not so much older, though. He's sitting there waiting for his turn in the line. And Carmine is just touching things. And this guy says to me, not any of this guy's things, but the store's things. Now I'm keeping an eye on him to make sure he's not breaking anything. And the guy says to me, Al, he's real mischievous, isn't he? I said, well, he's 2. And then the guy says to Carmine, as Carmine is continuing to touch things, the guy says to Carmine, hey, remember, and he didn't say it mean, he said it with a smile, but he says, hey, remember, this is not your home. And I'm thinking to myself, am I really in a scenario where I've had a broken hard drive for 4 months? This store has had it in their possession for a month and a half. And I'm now waiting in line, struggling to get my broken hard drive back so that I can send it to someone competent. And I'm listening to my son get politely reprimanded by a stranger. And I said, okay, that's it. We have to leave because honestly, Carmine was having such a good time in Best Buy running around. He would have stayed there for hours and hours and hours. I said, I'm not going to stay here in line. It's not doing anything for us. I'll let him do one more lap running around and then we'll go. And as he's running around, one of the store employees, Wendy, nice lady, she's saying, well, yeah, I don't think Daddy wants you to run around. I said, yeah, we're going to go home. Yeah, Daddy wants you to run around at home. And then Wendy actually says to me, yeah, you don't want him to get snatched or taken, whatever she said. But the implication was if he runs around, he's going to be kidnapped. And I'm thinking, doesn't she see that I'm watching him? I mean, he's running, and it's true, he is fast, but he's 10 feet in front of me. Who's going to kidnap him? He's 10 feet in front of me while I'm watching him and giving chase. And the other thing I'm thinking of is, do a lot of children tend to get kidnapped at Best Buy? I mean, clearly Wendy was very turned off by some sort of experience. And then it just so happened that we saw that same lady, Brandy, that was trying to get her hard drive replaced 2 days before when I was there. But it was an interesting day, but it was an unproductive one from the hard drive front. It was great for Carmine. He had fun running around there for 45 minutes, but still struggling to get all those files off that hard drive. All right. Why don't we do 15 seconds of fame? I'll give you 15 seconds to say whatever you like this Independence Day. 646-720-0635. 646-720-0635. 15 seconds of fame straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight. It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
I actually went long. Sorry about that. Happy Independence Day.
Economists warned that massive tax hikes could devastate your IRA and 401k as the stock market braces for impact. I'm Larry Kudlow, and I urge you to fortify your savings with physical gold with my friends at Priority Gold. To learn how gold and silver can help diversify your savings, please call 1-800-405-GOLD or just visit PriorityGold.com to get a free gold information guide. That's 1-800-405-GOLD.